I'm Elle Embers, and this is Cosmic Curiosities.
Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Cosmic Curiosities. My name is Elle, and if you would like to work with me in bridging that connection between your soul and you, with past life regression or cosmic channeling, you can send me a message on Instagram or visit my website, llembers.com. Today's episode is really powerful, and I am so excited for you guys to hear it. I am joined by Matt Caruana to share his truly inspiring story and message of hope. Matt unintentionally became an international speaker after becoming a paraplegic when he attempted suicide at 16. He is now best known for his humanitarian work surrounding suicide prevention, mental health, and inspiring meaningful change in thousands of people's lives. I would also like to mention that Matt has been able to take steps, like actual steps, in his rehabilitation. He's walking, and he's proving just how powerful our mental state really is. So, let's dive in. Hi, Matt. Thanks for joining me. How are you?
No, I'm doing well, Elle. Thank you for inviting me. I'm doing good. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thanks. Before we get started, did you want to really start by introducing yourself and telling everyone a little bit about what it is that you do?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Matt Caruana. I'm 23 years old. I speak and facilitate mental fitness workshops for companies, for high schools, organizations, and others alike, whether it be youth groups, communities. I'm all about how we can bounce back. My message is to help other people see and become their best version through effective strategies, but also things that they can understand and implement into their life.
And did you want to maybe, I know we're going to dive straight in off the bat, do you want to maybe tell everyone a little bit about your story and why it is you do what you do?
So when I was younger, when I was 12, I fell into a fairly heavy depression, labeled myself as worthless, like I was just nothing but a waste of space. And with those thoughts and feelings and mixing that with drugs and alcohol, it eventually led to me at 16 years old deciding to own that identity of being quote unquote worthless and a waste of space, that I actually went and threw myself 35 meters to attempt suicide. I was left a paraplegic as a result, and I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed. I had many people in my life that were supportive, and I also made the right decisions along the way that eventually started transforming my mindset and led me to the person I am now. I'm blessed to say that I say with conviction, I'm no longer anxious, no longer depressed, no longer suicidal. Do I have bad days? Yes. It's a completely different mindset that I have now, though. And when I say these things, it's not like my life is perfect, though I'm very grateful to have gone on the journey and to still be on the way towards reaching my best self.
That is such a big turnaround.
Yeah, I suppose I mean, waking up in hospital, right, after trying to end my own life, and after thinking and believing for 4 years that I was worthless, and to be left with half my body not functioning, and I couldn't feel half of it as well. Everything below my rib cage, no sensation, no function. And if I felt worthless beforehand, given that I attempted suicide and that I didn't do that right, I'd felt more pathetic than ever, though my journey has taught me that we all have it in us to bounce back, build that muscle of resilience, obtain mental strength, and overcome the challenges we face.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess throughout your journey and bouncing back from such a traumatic injury, how did you end up talking in schools about mental health?
Yeah, so this was a significant part in my journey in terms of my mental health, because when I was 17 at this stage, So this was not even a year after my injury. My social worker had invited me into the hospital for a meeting, and she had an offer to share my story at a hospital program where 30 or so young people would come through the hospital, go all throughout, like the ICU ward, the emergency, the trauma wards, and it's all about preventing risk-related trauma in youth. And they wanted me to share my story at the end of the day when the young people would come through. I was never someone who liked sharing or speaking, though there was a moment when she asked me, and I had this thought, if I could help others, how would that feel? And it's like this voice just said yes for me. It's like I didn't even think about it, right? It's, I intuitively said yes before I said no. And, this feeling from my heart just drew me to bring that out. 3, 4 months later, I shared for the first time, and it was a daunting experience. Though I remember these young people, they came up to me afterwards and just said how much they appreciated hearing me speak, how it inspired them. They want to help their friends and all this other stuff. And that really gave me a thought of, wow, maybe I could help other people with this. And for the first time after that sharing, hearing those words made me think, maybe I'm actually not worthless. Maybe I do have something to offer others. And I was speaking at that hospital program for a year because I was still in high school. I was still in year 12. Though finishing high school, I was blessed. I met my first mentor and I started speaking in schools. I started just by sharing my story, though it started evolving because I wanted to do more. I wanted to now facilitate workshops. Okay, if they want me to share my story, so be it. Happy to do that. Though I want to now use that opportunity because I've created a space by sharing my story. I can now dive into discussions, dive into personal reflections, and even activities that implement everything I'm doing in action. Everything I'm talking about, let's actually experience that in a safe environment. And so started doing that and have not looked back since.
And I mean, that would have been such a big step for you being, I mean, a 17-year-old boy who, I mean, stereotypically, most teenage boys aren't really open to talking about their feelings. But to have you kind of go, you know what? The results are going to be worth more than what my fear is. And just kind of leaning into it and trusting, that's so huge.
After the first time I'd shared, it was so different, right? Because on the way back home, so from the hospital, I called a bus to get back home. On the bus ride, my manager of the program she called me up. She's like, Matt, that was incredible. The school that brought those 30 young people in, they want you to speak next week at their parent-teacher evening. Like, are you happy for that? And the same thing happened. I just said yes. Now, was there that fear? Absolutely. And when I got to the school the next week, it wasn't 30 young people in just a little room. It was like, 300 or so parents, students, staff. Like, there was a lot of people. And the fear was there. The thought of how this could help someone else just trumped it.
Yeah.
It was like the fear wasn't even relevant at that point because it's now about these young people. And the same thing happened, the same feedback, but now it was a little bit different. People were actually asking questions about how they could support themselves and even some of their friends. And that really shifted things for me because on the car trip back home, my parents drove me. My dad asked me, hey, Matt, do you reckon you could take this somewhere? And I paused before I answered. But I realized in that moment, those young people that were asking me questions to how they can support themselves and others, that was the one thing I didn't do before my injury. I never spoke up. I did my absolute best to portray this image to the world that I was perfect. So what I had brought to these young people was exactly what I needed when I was younger. I was the person that I always needed. And I was helping other people in ways that once ailed me. And I said yes to my dad. I reckon I could. And that really inspired me from the inside out because it was no longer about the fear and about myself. It was now about others. How can I support them? I mean, it's that saying it's easier to mow your neighbor's lawn before your own. It's because of how you feel.
Yeah, definitely. I love that metaphor. That's so good. But absolutely. It's like, I bet as you're talking to these kids, it's like you're talking to your younger self and giving yourself the advice that you wish someone was there to give to you at the time.
I remember the first time I spoke to a cohort of year 7s, and then having them approach me afterwards. I mean, that was a real personal thing for me as well, because it was like 350 little me's. like I was 12. That's when this whole thing started for me. And
Yeah.
yeah, it really feels like that.
What kind of led you to that thought pattern? Do you feel that a lot of young people are lacking that sense of hope, that sense of purpose, and feeling disconnected?
Feeling disconnected and feeling like you don't have a place in the world, like you don't have purpose, it's actually really, really common. I was recently at a high school. This was a selective high school, and they got me to speak in front of the whole school, and it was really just on my mind. I remember the Q&A session. I had young people standing up amongst 1,200 young people in their school and saying, "I feel like I don't have purpose. I feel like sometimes I'm a waste of space and that, I'm not contributing in any way. How can I find my purpose?" That year 7 cohort that I spoke about earlier, same thing. Those young people coming up to me afterwards, a number of them said it was about feeling worthless, like they don't have any purpose. They're better off like not being here. It's very prevalent, unfortunately. And I believe these are questions like, what's the meaning of my life? What am I doing here? And all that stuff. Like, what is all this? I believe eventually at some stage we all asked ourselves these questions. I could be wrong. I don't know.
I feel like you're pretty onto it. I mean, the older you get, the more you ask.
And I'm sure you could agree with this too. That answer changes every day. It's always evolving,
Yeah.
right? And there's no one answer, which is the beautiful thing. And if you ask me, what's the meaning of life? I mean, what meaning do you want to give your life? It's your choice. I mean, if we're here, why don't we have fun? Why don't we enjoy it? Why don't we live it to the absolute most that we can? What's going to fulfill us and keep us in alignment rather than coming from a place of hate, coming from a place of comparisons and all these other things, but just sticking to what feels right. What do I want? What do I love? What's important to me?
Yeah. And how do you personally make those decisions? Like, how do you find what works for you, what aligns for you? What methods of practice do you use to feel fulfilled and satisfied in what you do?
I love to answer this in two ways. I'm going to start with the younger Matt.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if I'm relating it back to young people that feel like they don't have purpose, they don't know what they want to do when they grow up, they don't know what they love and all that stuff. Personally, I believe that's an exciting place to be. It's very uncertain, so it's scary. That when you're on the other side of it all, like you're looking back and it's like, wow, that was a cool time. I
Yeah.
remember when I was younger, I wanted to be a music therapist. So this is one example after my injury. When I was in hospital, I used to see a music therapist. I loved it, I mean, all I wanted to do was just jam with someone. Right? Like I just loved playing guitar, and they had a music therapist, and she was awesome. She had perfect pitch as well, and that blew my mind. Anyways, after my injury, it's a year later, I'm still in high school, and I'm like, I wonder what it's like to be a music therapist. Is this something I really want to commit to firstly studying and then doing, not necessarily for the rest of my life, but just doing it in general? And so I gave it a shot. I found a local music therapist, a practice, and I remember making the phone call to them, introducing myself. Hey, I'm 17 years old. I love music. I'm intrigued by psychology, and I want to be a music therapist. And so I shadowed them for a little bit, did some work experience, and I'm so glad I did, because that gave me an understanding of that in a lot more detail rather than just reading and researching about it. I got experience, and nothing's going to compare to that.
Yeah.
And so finding that is how I found what I align with. Did I align with music therapy as much as I thought? No, I didn't. Now, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Though, if speaking was my 10 out of 10, music therapy, I would say, was an 8 or a 9. I knew speaking I loved more. And when I say speaking, what I'm really talking about is my mission, and that is to influence meaningful change in other people's lives. And so speaking is one platform. Running workshops is one platform. There are many other things I'm working on, things I'm currently doing as well. But just finding what's in alignment is by really just giving things a go. That's really what it's about. And so how do I keep myself in check now? If I'm doing something, what intuitive thoughts are coming up? If I'm not filtering my thoughts and I'm just being the awareness, watching the thoughts come by and the feelings and emotions that I'm experiencing, do I feel like I'm in alignment? Do I feel this is right for me? Am I? And you know what? That can be quite head heavy. If I were to break it down though, are you having fun?
Yeah.
Right? Does it make you smile? And that's my filter about staying in alignment.
Yeah. And I mean, these things sound so simple, but when you
Right?
actually, right? It's like theoretically, yeah. I mean, do you have fun? Does this light you up? But then we get so caught in our own heads about what that means to us, or there's conditions around it. Like, yeah, this makes me happy, but I'm expected to do this for the rest of my life, or I need to have more security for myself or my family or whatever. And they feel like they have these limitations or these conditions that they stick around it. And it's like, well, it doesn't make me happy, but I get this, this, and this. And it's like, okay, but is that more important than your happiness? You have to weigh up the factors here. But we're so stuck in our heads that we don't connect to our intuition. We don't connect to our body and the way that we feel, that it's completely lost on some of us. So for someone in your position, obviously your mind would be what you spend majority of your time focusing on. But for someone who is able-bodied, they may have other things that are clouding those emotions and those thoughts and those feelings. So what do you suggest for those types of people who are needing to connect more with how they feel in those situations?
Not everything's sunshine and lollipops and rainbows, unfortunately. And so there are things that, you do need to tolerate too.
Mm-hmm.
Though to tolerate the things that aren't necessarily what we want, and like the strategies to go about that, it's making sure you have strategies to support yourself. I like to view self-care almost like our phones. Yeah, that's a good analogy. So our phones, right? We use our battery. We wake up, if we charge it overnight, it's 100%. We make calls, Instagram, whatever, your Facebook, maybe shop online, your battery goes down. The same with us. We wake up, our battery's recharged, we go about our day, we work, we study, we play, we would do groceries, we might do some things around the house, we might go meet some people, whatever it may be. We're using our battery. Though, like our phones, we can recharge. So what things bring up your energy, whether it may be meditation, whether it may be having a shower, could be having a nap even, having a good meal, listening to some music, whatever floats your boat, whatever works for you. And that's important because you're not going to enjoy every single moment of your life. There are going to be moments where you're like, ugh, wish I wasn't in this meeting. Ugh, I wish I wasn't here right now. Why do I have to put up with this person? Whatever. Okay, well, recognize that emotion's there. Accept it. Because if you try to fight it, you're only putting more and placing more energy on it, really. But to firstly be aware, and then accept those emotions, and then having strategies afterwards to implement for self-care.
What do you do for self-care? Do you meditate?
Meditation's a big part of my life. I love it. It's the way that I connect with myself further, and also strengthen the relationship I have with me. I love music. All the things I shared with you, by the way, just then were things that I do. I love music, both playing and listening. I love also cooking every now and then. Like it's a creative thing that I enjoy. One thing I love, by the way, now this is a bit out there for some people, but cold showers. Cold showers, it takes you from thinking to feeling straight away. That cold water hits you, you're not thinking about the things in your head. You are like, holy moly, that's this is cold.
Yeah.
Your body reacts. And accepting the cold, being okay with it, not trying to fight it. And just as you move the shower head over your body, or as you just feel that water run over your arms and your back or whatever, just being aware of the sensations, accepting it, and moving forward, which is also a great way to, I think, as well, build resilience. And there's many other health benefits that come with cold showers, but yeah.
Totally. I mean, I used to do the cryo chambers, and
Yeah.
you literally stand in there and you're in like dry ice basically. Like it's so cold. And the only thing you can focus on is your breath.
Mm.
And you're connecting to your body and you're breathing. And the more you're focusing on your breath, the less you're feeling the pain, I guess, from the cold.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, it does have so many physical benefits as well as mental benefits because we are connecting with ourselves through that
Mm.
process.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind me asking you, Elle, what's your self-care strategies? I love the breath. I'm focusing on the breath, though. I think is really key. So, just side note, but yeah, please go on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I do like to do a cryo chamber every now and then. And I do like float sessions because I
Oh
am someone who is
yes.
very in my head and I overanalyze. So being in a float tank and sensory deprivation makes me sit. It makes me stop and it makes me connect with myself rather than thinking about all the things that I need to do today. It slows everything down. So I think that is super beneficial for me. And also, I do like to meditate, but I don't like to meditate in the way that is like standard normal sort of meditation. So the way that I like to meditate, this is going to sound really strange, but I like to, before I quiet myself down, I like to make as much noise as possible.
Get it all out.
Whether it's screaming, whether it's singing, whether it's whatever. And then I literally, like, it's just like letting out all this pent up energy
Mm.
so that I can sit down and I can stop moving and sit still. And I like to do that by grounding my feet to the earth. So my skin touching the ground and relaying any sort of heavy emotions that I'm carrying or have been carrying through the day or through the week that aren't serving me anymore, or they aren't mine in general. It's like I've picked that up from someone else that's experienced that today. Like,
Yeah.
and that their moods put me in this mood. So I always find that is really my sort of self-care beneficial way to help myself.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. And it sounds like you're really just connecting with you.
Yeah.
And the point I want to stress here as well is just because something that works for L or I, it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work for everyone. And some people recharge in their own space, and some people recharge with others as well. So hanging out with friends could be something that works for some people, while not so much for someone else. Me, I'm definitely a mixture of both. I love people. I talk a lot. I have a big mouth. Although I love also being in my own space too, where I can recharge too.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's a fluctuation of how you're feeling at the time, whether you require that social interaction or whether you require more internal quiet time by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's very important to be aware of what type of person you are.
Yes.
Am I someone who feeds off other people's energy and becomes recharged by that? Or am I someone that needs to be in my own pod, so to speak?
Yeah. And that it's okay for that to change as well.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, just because you like something today doesn't mean you're gonna like it tomorrow.
exactly.
Yeah, things can change, just like our that answer to what's the meaning of our life. Like we said earlier, that's constantly evolving and changing. So are your interests and passions, and what's going to recharge your battery, your self-care rituals are going to change over time. I personally reflect on what it'd be like to later in life have kids.
Hmm.
I'm definitely gonna have a family when I'm older, and I'm so intrigued by what it would be like to have a quote unquote little Matt, right? Like, I definitely feel like my like routines and rituals would definitely change when I have a kid. I'm going to be someone who's going to want to spend the most amount of time with them, like just show them the love that they deserve and all these other things as well. That'll be recharging my battery.
Yeah, absolutely. And for someone who has kids, I can tell you
Hmm.
that also fluctuates.
I bet.
So, I mean, there are plenty of times where it is so recharging for me to spend time with my kids and go and do a fun activity together. Or, like, even, not having to go out and do something, but just spending time together, like,
Mm,
playing cards at home or drawing together or whatever. And there are some times where it's just like the social battery. It's like, okay, I need a minute for myself now. Like, I need time to just not have to communicate with people around me. I just need to communicate with myself. And it's the same. And I think too, a lot of parents, they have guilt over that. They have guilt that, hang on, I do need a minute alone, or I do need a minute by myself. And like that's normal. That's just the way we are and the way that we function as humans, to have duality in things. It's like things do fluctuate, things do change, and it's totally okay to have your battery recharge with your kids and then also charge your battery without them. Having both is fine.
let's find that balance.
Yeah,
Is what it sounds like. Yeah.
totally. Balance is a big thing. And I guess too, with what you do and going and talking to people about mental fitness and mental health and strategies and everything like that, how important has maintaining your own mindset through your journey been?
It's been crucial. And I'm a big advocate for if you say something, you do it. If you are going to be something for someone else, you better be that. So, for example, I want to lead by example. I want to be the representation of what I'm talking about. I don't want to be sharing with others how they can bounce back if I haven't done so myself. I don't want to be the person who's saying, hey, you can take care of your mental health, have self care, these strategies and put them in place if I'm not implementing them myself. Because if I'm not, then my word means nothing. So I'm very big on being that. And the importance of maintaining my own health, my mental health is paramount. I hear a lot of stories. Like I've been asked quite a bit actually. Matt, you have so many people coming up to you after you speak and all this stuff. Like, does it ever get draining? And sometimes it's upsetting to hear stories. Though I've thankfully been able to develop the muscle of empathy, which is looking at it from a third person perspective, a bird's eye view, rather than being immersed in it and being sympathetic. So I don't allow it to affect me. And knowing that I'm sharing and influencing some meaningful change in their life, that alone just inspires the hell out of me. Now, like I said, I still get bad days. Not every day is perfect, but I have strategies in place that I go to, that I implement to ensure that I am taken care of.
Mm.
So when I go and support others, I'm the person that they need.
Yeah, and it's such a big thing there where you said, you do have to change your perspective from being like sympathetic and empathetic and seeing it from sort of a bird's eye view, because
Mm,
by trade, I am a past life regressionist and I see people go through this journey of experiencing different lifetimes, but sometimes they may have gone through something that is quite upsetting, whether they've lost a loved one or experienced something. And, taking them through that and hearing about what they're seeing, and even, getting to know these people in their current life, and the events that have happened in their life are not always sunshines and rainbows. Sometimes you get people who have gone through domestic abuse or hard times or a loved one passing or an illness or, something along those lines that you do have to step away from and still yet support them. Because if you took on what they were feeling all the time, I'd be a mess. Because you do hear so much sadness, and it's just having that care and support for them through that, rather than taking on the heaviness of what you're hearing at the time.
I think it's really key to also understand your role in it.
Yeah.
If you're supporting someone else, we're there as a support. It's never your job to be a savior.
Exactly.
And I mean, especially guys want to fix and sort out the issues and, no. Be there to listen, be there to understand, be there to empathize, be there to support, not save.
Yeah. Let go of the hero complex.
Let go of the hero complex. Absolutely. And so by being that, if you ask me, you're actually doing more for the person, though it's never your place to change anyone other than yourself. You can support and influence. That's the most that you can do.
100%. And so with your upbringing and your experiences through your early teenage years, what advice do you give to, let's say, other 12-year-olds that are feeling depressed, that are feeling disconnected and anxious? How do they know things are going to get better? Because especially when we're teenagers, especially when we're young, we don't just have these thoughts or questions about our lives and where we belong, but we also have this huge change in hormones and physical changes that throw everything out of balance as well, and we may not be thinking as clearly as what we would any other time. So what advice do you have for them if they're in that situation?
I'd love to answer this question from two places.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to start with the conversation we have around mental health has to change. It has to be coming from a place of hope, a place of, look, we address the bad. We never leave people on a low note, always on a high note. And we need to be sharing a message of positivity, as a message of hope, a message of this isn't the be all and end all. There is another side to it all. That's really key for me, firstly. So anytime we're having a conversation around mental health, leaving people with a message of inspiration. Now, the second way I want to answer this, my direct thing I want to share to young people is firstly, just observe who you're hanging around. Do they make you feel how you want to feel more of? Because the people we surround ourselves with really influence us.
Yeah.
Whether it be what we think, what we do, what we even feel. And if you're reflecting on how you want to feel more of, and then seeing how your friends make you feel, if those questions are the same, answer the same, perfect. If they're different, or maybe other friends might be the better option. Now, easier said than done. When you're 12 years old, when you're 13, it's so much harder, right?
Yeah.
Because you have your friendship groups, and at that stage, your whole life almost revolves around your friendship groups.
Yeah.
So if your life's going to revolve around those friendship groups, ensure they're the right ones.
And I mean, it's so often that we think back to being kids and we go, oh, my mum really didn't like this one particular friend that we had or whatever. And it's not until later on that you're like, damn, mum was right about them.
Absolutely. You think you know what's best, right?
Right?
Oh, mum and dad don't get me. Oh, no, they don't understand. They don't get me. No. They see the big picture.
Totally. For us, it's like, oh, well, no, they're our friend. And that's just how they are, and but they're really popular, so I'm popular, and just leave it alone. Like,
That's it. I want the friends, I want the likes, I want the this, the that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But in reality, like, being friends with that person really made you feel like shit and really made you question your self-worth, and was just a constant comparison into who could be better than the other. Like, and that's not something we pick up on until we're older.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's one other message I would love to share to those young people that are in that place, which is it's okay to be in that place. I mean, I'm speaking from my experience, not what anyone else might be thinking, but I feel like I couldn't talk about these emotions, and I feel like it was wrong to be feeling this way for so long. And that caused more self-judgment, which in a way amplified those existing thoughts and feelings that were already there. And so if you are in that place, it's okay to be in that place. Understand it's not going to be there forever, and that you can get out of it.
Absolutely. A lot of the time we often hear about people who have attempted suicide, whether they have been successful or not. A lot of people are saying, we never would have known. There was nothing wrong. Like, how could you tell? How could you tell there was anything wrong? They seemed happy. They seemed fine. Like, what could they have done differently? That's the question they're all asking themselves by the end of it, is what could we have done differently? But it's, how can we talk about this more and people don't feel like they need to put a mask on and hide their true feelings about things and talk about things openly, so that we can see and we can support them.
Absolutely. And I think the answer to that is just ask the question, how are you going? How's your day going? Like, how are you really going? Maybe if you recognize a quote unquote red flag, well, not a red flag, that sounds extreme. Let's call it an amber flag, right? If you've got a green, amber, red, yellow lights,
Yeah.
traffic light systems. Let's say an amber flag comes up. Maybe you see someone, they're a bit irritable. They look like they're bothered. Maybe they're usually, a very talkative person, but they're just quiet all of a sudden. Maybe they like being around people, but maybe they're isolating themselves. Maybe they're not eating as much. Maybe they're eating too much. Maybe they're exercising too much, or not exercising at all. They're just completely different.
Yeah.
If those amber flags come up, just check in. Hey, Elle, I'm, usually you're a bit more talkative. You're a bit quiet today. Do you mind if I ask, is anything going on? Is everything okay?
Yeah.
Asking and checking with our friends, our loved ones, our family, it's very important. And those people that do complete suicide, they unfortunately, like you mentioned, have those family members and loved ones that are left wondering why, what could I have done? What didn't I do? What did I do wrong? And all these other questions that just come up. And it is never your fault, firstly, that someone had done what they'd done, though we can always have the conversation to ensure that no one else we know goes down that path. If you ask me, one suicide's way too many. And so we need to support our loved ones, support our friends in the best way that we can, actually have the conversation, have the courage to step into that place of discomfort. It's not comfortable talking about these things. Though, if we can develop the muscle of courage, if you ask me, it is like a muscle. The more and more we get comfortable with it, the more and more supportive we can be, and also our friends and our loved ones.
Absolutely. Like, I lost way too many friends in my teen years to suicide. And we all were stuck there thinking, what could we have done? And I think a big lesson that I took away from that was not even just asking and checking in and seeing how they're going, but doing it more than once. Like, if they seem off and they're not themselves and they are like, oh no, I'm fine, I'm just tired or whatever, check in the following day. Don't just be like, well, I asked and, they said they were fine. It's like, okay, but did you follow up? Sometimes people don't feel safe to express their feelings. And so if you are asking those questions and the person you're asking doesn't feel safe to really express their feelings in that moment. It could be for a number of reasons, whether it's they don't feel safe in the environment they're currently in, or the people that are around them, or whatever. But ask again at another time, in another place, in another way, just to give them that second opportunity. Because even the first time around, they could be like, no, I'm fine, it's okay, I'm just tired. And then they spend the whole, rest of their day thinking, I should have said something. I should have said what I was really feeling. And if you don't ask them again, they don't have that opportunity.
And I think, just to compliment what you're saying, I am a big believer as well. If someone's going to say they're fine, I understand that in that situation, like you said, they're not comfortable sharing if there's something going on, because they might be fine.
Yeah.
We never really know how someone's feeling unless we ask, unless they share the honest truth with us. We can get a good idea by looking at them, but we don't know for absolute sure. So if they're sharing that they're fine, accepting that, and then sharing where you're coming from, I just want you to know, I support you, and I am here if you did want to have a chat in the future.
Exactly.
If something is going on, it's very key to ask the question, but then check up and follow up, like you said. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And love is not necessarily a feeling. Love is a verb. If you love someone, if you support someone, just saying you do doesn't really mean much. Actually show them, whether by be actually spending some quality time with them, have a great conversation. Maybe you thought of them, give them a call, send them a message. There are many different ways we can show and express our love. Figure out what you like doing, but also maybe think about how this person might receive it, how they might appreciate it as well.
Exactly. It's learning the love languages. This is what I like to give, and this is what I like to receive, and they might not always be the same thing. But just being open to trying out different things and seeing what you best respond to or what they best respond to, and following through.
Absolutely.
So before we wrap things up, and I know we've talked about some heavy topics, but I wanted to finish up by asking you, what is your most favorite ever inspiring quote? Like, what is the most inspiring thing that you love?
There was a quote I heard ages ago, and it just stuck with me because when I was younger, this was really, really prevalent, and even after my injury, it was very prevalent. To this day, it still is, because I'm just ultra aware that with how I run my life, I always come from a place of what's in alignment. That's what's most important. So I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. In this perception of what other people think of us, of what we think other people think of us. We don't even really know for certain. We just do what we think other people think we are. And I definitely did that before my injury a lot. If you do any stalking on my social media, on my Instagram, you'll see some posts earlier on that were about who I used to be. And the image I portrayed to the world was the image that I thought everyone had of me. It was the image also that I wanted other people to have of me too. But ultimately, it was also I thought what other people thought of me. Though the reason that is so big, like I said, is because now I'm all about living in alignment. I've done my absolute best to forget about what I think other people are thinking, even forget about the things that I think I should be. No, what feels right, what's fun, what's in alignment with me.
That's such a big thing, isn't it? Is like, we can't read other people's minds, and we don't really know what they're thinking. And a lot of the time we are just assuming that they feel a certain way about us or think a certain way about us. And a lot of the time it's just projection. It's it's not what they're actually thinking or feeling. It's such a big thing.
I couldn't agree more. And the moment we become aware of that, we free ourselves. Because now it's a choice. We can still live in a way which is about our projection, what we think other people are thinking, or we could live in alignment with ourselves. If you're someone young, take a shot at your dreams. Like, what do you have to lose? Do you want to live your life in a way which is based on what you thought your parents thought you needed to be, or think you should quote unquote, by the way. I don't like that word, should. But yeah, what do you value? What's in alignment? Chase that.
That's the thing, right? You've got the world at your feet. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. And we forget it. That's all it is. But then we get to adulthood and we're like, yep, do it, guys, do it.
Absolutely. One thing my injury has taught me is I was literally like on the edge of death, essentially. I mean, like I've considered myself very lucky to be here. I'm blessed to be alive. I really am. I'm very grateful for it. Though it taught me, if I was that close, because this is literally my second chance at life. And if I've been given a second chance, I want to know that I did my absolute best on my second chance. I didn't know I had the potential for something and didn't do it.
Yeah.
Because the last thing I need later on in life is regret. That scares the living hell out of me. Being 80 years old, knowing when I was younger, I had the potential to go influence meaningful change in millions of people's lives. And I didn't chase that. I didn't go after that. I chased money. If you ask me, money is not the definition of success. It's how much meaning do you have in life? How aligned you live? Because the last thing I believe anyone wants to do is know they had potential but didn't use it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you know something's true to you, as in something's meaningful, that like this thing gives you a spark, a fire, you're passionate about it, go after that. If you wake up in the morning with a kick up your ass because you feel that fire inside of you burning from that thing you want to do, that's exactly what you chase. You don't chase the thing that people say you should do or what you think other people say. It doesn't fucking matter. Deep down, it's inside of you.
100%. And the big thing that like came up for me then when you were saying that was like money comes and goes, but the feeling of regret, that'll last forever. That will last forever.
Absolutely. And in my life, I mean, I've been blessed where the more aligned I live, money just tends to come anyway.
Yeah,
And
exactly. It's
so,
energy.
because you're living from a place of abundance rather than living from a place of lack.
Absolutely.
You can make lack work, don't get me wrong. You can become wealthy from a place of lack, but the emptiness you feel at the end of that is nothing that'll outweigh the money. I remember I was at an event where I met someone who was literally a billionaire. His company does hundreds of millions. He does 9 figures every year. And he has very little of what he loves in his life, unfortunately. And I remember we did this activity at this event that we were at. And he looks at me and he says, Matt, honest to God, I would switch everything to be in the position that you're in. And he said that from a place of, look, I love my kids, but I feel like I had to be the provider. I feel like I had to be, the man to bring home the money and all this other stuff. And, I did. And I've got that much money, but it's worth nothing.
Yeah.
And what went through my mind was, wow, I mean, imagine being in a place where you have all the money in the world, but feel like you actually have nothing. That's scary. All the money in the world isn't worth a cent to you.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a sad but a really common story.
Mm.
And it is because we, as humans in that situation, we are focusing on the wrong things. We aren't focusing on what lights us up inside.
Mm.
And the other big thing about trying to create wealth from a sense of lack is that you're never going to feel like you have enough. It's never going to be good enough. You could have $1 billion and still feel like it's not enough. So, I mean, from coming from a place of abundance, you can have $10 and feel like you have the world. Like, and I know where I'd rather be.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, how we feel heavily dictates the quality of our experience. And that's with anything. I mean, I've been also very blessed to have met people on the other end of things where they have all the money in the world and they have everything, like great family, great friends, great business,
Yeah.
great people around them, great everything. And you look at their life and it's always the same thing. They live in alignment. They have meaning.
Exactly.
Like they follow what they're passionate about. It's amazing to see that because there's no coincidence why they are in the position that they are.
As a society, we don't take our mindset seriously. And the fact is that it controls every aspect of our life. It's something that should be taken so much more seriously.
Completely agree with you.
Well, I mean, thank you so much, Matt.
My pleasure, Elle. Seriously, I really appreciate you inviting me on. It was lovely speaking with you. It's always a good conversation speaking with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I really appreciate all your wisdom, all your experience, and everything you've shared. And I know that it will help a lot of people out there. So thank you. If anyone wants to work with you personally, where can they find you?
Yeah, so if you're curious about social media, my Instagram is Matt Shares. My website is mattcaruana.com. On my website, you'll find a little bit about the work I do and also things I've done in the past, but also how you can get in contact with me as well. So that'd be awesome.
Amazing. Thanks, Matt.
I appreciate you, Elle. Thank you very much.
Well, this is your Earthside Spirit Guide signing off for the week. If you'd like to know more about how you can work with me, you can follow me on Instagram at l.embers or visit my website lembers.com.